Hey, what's going on, guys? Yeah, about the debates last night, one comment that really stood out to me from Elizabeth Warren was the alleged accusation that Mayor Bloomberg told one of his staffers back in the early 2000s to quote unquote have an abortion, but in a very unintactful way. The way that Elizabeth phrased it was that he apparently told one of his staffers to kill it, as if he was referring to like a roach or a fly on the wall instead of a human being. Now, regardless of whether or not you're pro choice or pro life, whether your stance is on this issue, was it tactful or was it correct for Elizabeth Warren to refer to the incident in this way? And plus, to accuse something Michael Bloomberg of something that is so horrendously evil to say. And now, obviously, if Michael Bloomberg actually said this thing, he has tremendous chutzpah and tremendous nerve to actually tell a woman to do this with her own body. But if Elizabeth Warren is making this story up and it's not true about Mayor Bloomberg, then that was horrendous and evil. Because you don't win by throwing a low blow out like this in a debate that's supposed to be civil. You win the battle of ideas with good ideas. You don't win with personal ad hominem attacks like Elizabeth Warren is engaging in. To me, I think whether or not it's true or not, Elizabeth Warren takes the L because she's the one slinging the mud. Obviously, if it's true, like I said, Mayor Bloomberg deserves condemnation for such a horrendous, evil comment about this coworker's baby. But my question is not whether it's true or not because we can't prove it. We weren't there. We didn't see it. But was it right for Elizabeth Warren to throw this out there? She, for the past two debates that Mayor Bloomberg has been in, she's really been the one to really attack Mayor Bloomberg. I mean, who can forget an infamous statement from the last debate they had in the Nevada caucus, where she said that Mayor Bloomberg allegedly called people horse-faced lesbians and fat broads. I just think that Elizabeth Warren is kind of worried that she's not going to win, or that she's trying to kiss up to Bernie Sanders. To if Bernie Sanders actually wins the nomination for the Democratic Party, she would like to be the VP, and she's trying to gain brownie points with Bernie Sanders because everyone on stage uh, last night attacked specifically Bernie Sanders, except for Elizabeth Warren, that she seemed like she was teaming up with Bernie Sanders to go against Mayor Bloomberg. Because like you had like five or six people on the stage, and after Nevada, Bernie Sanders is the front runner. So you would think that everyone would attack Bernie Sanders, but instead they all went after Mayor Bloomberg. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren went after Mayor Bloomberg. Obviously, people, even though he's trailing in the polls, people are still really upset with. Not upset, scared of Mayor Bloomberg influence as far as financially. He doesn't really have the voter influence like Bernie Sanders, but he has the financial and the money resources to win the nomination, and they're afraid that he might steal the nomination just through his media influence. But again with Elizabeth Warren, like to me, like when I look at debates like this, I say, as a casual observer, I say, well, is somebody gonna do the ethical thing and sling the mud and go for that low blow and feed into that negativity, negative campaign, or are they gonna go the high route and just debate the issues and the ideas? And I think that's where Elizabeth Warren went wrong. Was like, even if it's true, you don't come at Mayor Bloomberg like that. Like that's a really low blow. You come at Mayor Bloomberg for his ideas, his policy, his track record in New York City, his track record as far as business, but you don't come at his personal life. She was trying to attack him from a feminist angle, saying that he was insensitive towards this woman's plight, if it is indeed true that he said this. But again, it's conjecture, it's rumors. We weren't there, we didn't see it. So if this were a court of law, her argument would be remiss because we didn't see it, we weren't there, and we can't prove it. She didn't. She didn't bring a recording of it. She didn't bring an affidavit from the alleged coworker. Nothing. None of this stuff. So if you can't prove it, then don't even bring it up. You're just proving to people that your campaign is extremely negative. Debate the ideas, not the personalities. But I think that some of the Democrats are like stooping to Trump's level because they know that Trump engages in personal attacks. So they feel like they have to engage in it as well. Trump calls Mayor Bloomberg Mini Mike. He calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. He calls uh, Mayor Pete Buttigieg Alfred E. Newman. He calls different people different nicknames. And because he does this, they feel like they have to do this too. But I would think that the opposite would be true. People will be tired of people attacking each other on their personalities or the way they look or their past of things that cannot be proven. And they would just attack each other on issues and policy. A couple of other things too that really don't relate to this title, but do to relate to the debates last night. I don't really know if um, I don't really know. I'm not sure if Joe Biden will succeed in South Carolina, but I think if he doesn't, he should just drop out because it just seemed like Joe Biden last night was completely being ignored, and he was actually begging for people to let him speak. He actually said the words, "Let me talk." So if you can't even be heard, I think it's time, Vice President Biden, Sleepy Joe, as again Trump's nickname gave him, but it was a kind of funny nickname because he looked like he was completely asleep and he had to lay down for a nap. But I think it's time for you as well to step aside, along with Amy Klobuchar. I mean, she went at it pretty heavily with Mayor Pete in the last debate, but she really didn't have much to say. In this one, it was completely dominated by Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren with her low trash comments, and Mayor Mike Bloomberg and Mayor Pete Buttigieg with a sick burn that Bernie Sanders politics are too 1960s, given that he gave praise to Fidel Castro's literacy program in Cuba. They said that Donald Trump's politics are too 1950s and Bernie's are too 1960s. So that was a completely sick burn. And I think Buttigieg is a shrewd debater, and he's a young guy. But the thing is, he has no visibility on a national stage. Like we didn't up until he entered the race, nobody even knew who he was. Same with Amy Klobuchar, same with Tom Steyer. These people are not even Elizabeth Warren. These people are not really known by the national public like Bernie Sanders is, like Mayor Mike Bloomberg and Vice President Joe Biden. But out of the three, I think Joe Biden is the weakest because he's just cashing in on Barack Obama's legacy. And yeah, you did a lot of things with Barack Obama, but you were just a teammate, bro. Like you weren't the guy in the trenches. You weren't the president. You weren't making the decisions. It wasn't like in the 2000s when you had Vice President Dick Cheney and Vice President and President George W. Bush. You had a guy in the trenches that was vice president actually making all the moves and actually uh, deciding what chess pieces go where. In this case, in Obama and Biden's case, from 2008 to 2016, Joe Biden didn't really do that. He was a background role, and he's just cashing in on Obama's legacy in a similar way that Al Gore was doing with the Clinton legacy, and it didn't work for Al Gore, and it's not going to work for Joe Biden. But Joe Biden, I think, will eventually drop out, like I said, but I think he will do well in South Carolina because in South Carolina is a very conservative state, even though it's a Democratic primary. It's still to the right of some other more liberal states like California, like New York, like Illinois. It's not all the way blue, so he might do well because he's pretty conservative by comparison to Warren or um, uh, Warren and Sanders, particularly the progressive wing of the party. So he might do relatively well, but still overall on the national stage, I think he should drop out because he has really nothing to offer of any originality. Now, another thing I wanted to say about Mayor Mike Bloomberg, he he claims that teachers were treated well under his administration uh, as mayor, but didn't many teachers in New York City threaten to go on strike when he was the mayor of New York City? Wasn't that the time when he was mayor of New York City that the phrase "the rent is too damn high" become a thing? Mayor Mike Bloomberg, he's not like Obama and the rest of the Democrats. He just doesn't want to take away your guns. Oh, Mayor Mike Bloomberg wants to take away your sodas. So just keep that in mind come November if Mayor Mike Bloomberg is the nominee for the Democrats. I don't think he will be. I think Bernie Sanders will take the nomination But while Bernie wants to take away your Second Amendment rights, Mayor Mike Bloomberg wants to even take away your First Amendment rights. I imagine somebody like him would want to stifle protest, want to buy off elections and buy off votes from people because, as Bernie Sanders said, Mayor Mike Bloomberg has really an energetic fan base, but they're all billionaires. The rich and upper elite class, the ruling class in this country would love to see a presidency like Mike Bloomberg because he would take it easy on them. He wouldn't raise taxes too high. But the problems I fear with a guy like Bernie Sanders is that will he push the country too far to the left that they will ultimately react by being even more far right than even a Donald Trump, somebody that's like really an aggressive right wing guy, like a really out there right wing type guy. Because we saw this in history before. One of the reasons why it's important to study history and to know what happened in the past is because human beings, being that we're fallible and we all make mistakes, we always make the same mistakes. We just make them in a different generation and in a different context. And one of the things that happened in Germany in the 1930s under the Weimar Republic was they became so far to the left that it was easy for a far right guy like Adolf Hitler to just push in and push the country very, very far to the left. I mean, to the right. So I fear that if Bernie does get in, this could happen to the United States. And keep in mind that uh, when a country wanes in political power and political and global influence in the world, they tend to push forward towards dictatorships, and they tend to lose their individual rights and freedoms. Uh, and they even give them up because they're scared of economic disaster. So they're willing to surrender their civil liberties and they're willing to give you their body for their bread. They don't want to starve, so they'll give up all their rights to a dictatorship in order to ensure their own survival and that of their offspring. This is what happened in Germany. This is what happened even in Rome. And this is even what happened after 9/11 when George W. Bush passed the Patriot Act. We were so scared after 9/11 that we were willing to give up our, our freedoms to ensure our own security. And this could happen with the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus is such a deadly thing because we're not dealing with something like Ebola, where it's in an isolated part of the world where there is no trade, commerce. We're dealing with a very sophisticated country and a sophisticated economy and the world's global superpower in the world, like China. And if the Chinese economy collapses, So does the U.S. economy. So does that in Europe. So does that in the Middle East. Everywhere in the whole world. So um, many people are uncertain about their futures, particularly in the stock market. And now, as they elect um, new leadership in the world, they may be given over to brutal, unbridled dictatorship. Now, I'm not saying that this is what Mayor Mike Bloomberg is about. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he's going to do that, but if he's already talking about taking away your right to eat whatever food you choose, who's to say he's not going to pass a law if he were to become president that would say that you can't eat certain Chinese or Asian food because of the coronavirus, and that people would buy into it and people would be willing to pass this law because they say, oh, well, I don't want to eat that anyway, so let him pass the law restricting me from eating that and giving him and the government even more power over our choices and decisions. So it's a very contentious time that we're living in because I feel like this election could be one of the most important in our lifetime to decide whether we believe in the capacity for self government and the experiment of 1776 or we don't believe in it. You know, as one of our presidents said one time, this is a time for choosing. Peace.